they are the same thing. To say that we're keeping the Lord central in our life entails us keeping the church central as well. I suppose it's the challenge of any topical series. If you start to deal with a topic, you're going to focus on the topic, and you're not excluding all the other ways of thinking, or so there's lots of things we could say should be important and valuable and central in our lives in a sense, but all of them generally are in matters of obedience to the Lord. So we read that verse earlier on there, 1 Corinthians 12:12. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. And Christ there is a word that really includes everything that Paul writes after that. So the church, the body of Christ, is Christ. And if you remember, wasn't from today, was it? But it was from all the other talks I said how the body of Christ is so identified with Christ that when Paul's persecuting the church, Jesus says, "Why are you persecuting me?" Can't remember the other example I gave. But that's a common idea. So the church is so identified with Christ that if we keep the church central, we're keeping Christ central. If we keep Christ central, or the Lord or God central, then we are also keeping the church central. The two things go together. And that's not unlike some other aspects of the Christian life as well. So, for example, loving the Lord means keeping his commandments. So you could say, keeping the commandments of Christ is the same as loving Christ. So, for example, John 14:15, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So if you can say you're keeping the commandments, you're also saying that you're loving Christ. Or 1 John 4, verse 20, verse 21. And this amounts to the same thing as loving the church and keeping the church central. If anyone says, I love God, and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. And this commandment we have from him, whoever loves God must also love his brother. So the two things are so closely associated that you can't really separate the two. Should have put the time saver off. That's going to keep going off all night. So the church is also where God speaks to us, meets with us, pours out his grace upon us. So in essence, the two things are so closely related that you can't completely separate them. If I was to preach a series on the centrality of God, there'd be a significant amount about it. A significant amount of the content of that series would also be about keeping the church central. And so while it's a legitimate question, when you're taking on a series, you have to put some boundaries and some parameters onto it. So I wanted to talk about the church, and so I thought, well, let's see that the church is to be central. And I hope you agree that the church is to be central, regardless of whether you think another way of looking at the Christian life is keeping God central. We can't cover every theological topic every time we preach, every time we teach, every time we speak, and so forth. So it's really just a focusing in on one aspect of what it means to keep God central, I would say. That might not be completely satisfactory, but that's how I would view it. And so it's from a practical point of view, but also a theological point of view. I don't think there's that much distance between the two things.